All right, good evening, everyone. Time is now 7:19 p.m. Announce that a quorum is present. Call to order the City Council regular meeting. All please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you for the privilege of praying with you. Let us pray. Almighty God, you have made all the peoples of the earth for your glory, to serve you in freedom and peace. And we have this good land for our heritage. We humbly pray that we may always prove ourselves a people mindful of your favor and glad to do your will. Bless our land and especially this city with honorable industry, sound learning, and pure manners. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil way. Give to the people of our nation a zeal for justice and the strength of patience, self-control, restraint, and tolerance, that we may use our liberty in accordance with your gracious will. Defend our liberties, and fashion into one united people the multitudes brought here out of many kindreds and tongues. Endow with the spirit of wisdom those to whom in your name we entrust the authority of government, that there may be justice and peace at home, and that through obedience to your law we may show forth your praise among the nations of the earth. In the time of prosperity, fill our hearts with thankfulness, and in the day of trouble suffer not our trust in you to fail. All of which we ask in your most holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, you may be seated. All right, public comments on the white card. Comments will be taken from audience members on non-agenda related topics for a length of time not to exceed 3 minutes. Let's see, we have, I think, 5 total comment cards here this evening, and I will call you up, and we will start on your time of 3 minutes. Get my timer out. All right. First up, we have Miss Ann. Oh.
Hello. Good to see you. I have some maps. Can I hand these out to everybody? 10 of them? Okay, thanks so much. It's good to see you all again. We tried to give you a little break for a bit, but Pam and I wanted to come and bring these invitations and these maps for you guys. On the first map that you're going to be given, you can unroll it and see that, to give you your bearings, to see Mainer's on your left and 290 is just off of the map at the top. And the Wilbarger Creek Greenway starts in Mainer to the left with some parkland and easements along Wilbarger Creek. And then it opens up into this big area of parkland and federally conserved land that will all be part of the park one day. And on this first map, you can see the City of Mainer, the 98-acre site for the wastewater treatment plant, is right in the middle of the park and the conserved land. We've given these maps to all the Travis County commissioners and the judge and asked them to do everything in their power to protect our park, to purchase the 98 acres from the City of Mainer, and help you find a better location for the wastewater treatment plant. There are other sites similar in size to the 98-acre tract that are on the tributaries just north of this location that would be out of the floodplain and safer for the public, and also closer to the development it would be servicing. But there is no other place for a park as wild and wonderful as this with thousands of contiguous acres. And we all hope you will come out and see it soon. Pam's going to give you some invitations. On the next map, you can see the Travis County floodplain on the exact same area. You can see that the City of Mainer property is right in the middle where these 3 major creeks converge into Wilbarger. And it is not a hypothetical floodplain when it floods. It is a dangerous, raging river that destroys everything in its path. I've witnessed it more times than I can count over the last 25 years, sometimes twice in 1 year, when the water is running 20 to 30 feet deep across my property and the city of Manor bottomland. We worry about public safety, putting critical infrastructure with the chemicals and E. coli and contamination it would cause when it is undoubtedly compromised by these raging floods. We hope you will reconsider the location of the wastewater treatment plant and leave this big, beautiful park as wild and wonderful as it is now. And we really hope you'll all come out and see how spectacular it is. There is nowhere else in the county like it. And it is right here for all the citizens of Manor to enjoy. Thank you so much for your time again today, and we hope to see you soon out on the park.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Pamela Fowler Dickerson.
I am back, and I am just here to give each and every one of you an invitation to come out and visit our Wilbarger Creek Greenway to see how beautiful it is. We spoke on the wastewater treatment plant, but we've also talked about what it means to preserve the land out there for hopefully someday that it will be a national park for us. So my email address and my phone number is on there. The best time to come out would be around 6 o'clock in the evening, and we are available anytime during the day from now until June 1st. And then after that, it'll be super hot. But I promise you, it will be a relaxing and eventful and informational tour where we will serve you refreshments and homemade lemonade. So please take the time to come out one day after work and just let us know, and let us just refresh your mind and let you view the Wilbarger Creek Greenway. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lisa Powell. Is it Gould? I'm sorry.
Yes, Lisa Powell Gould.
Gould.
So I'm a landowner in Travis County. I have one property between my property and the proposed parkland. So I've owned this property for 29 years. And in that 29 years, I've seen 11 floods, 3 of which were epic. As in, the water was 25 and 30 feet above my head in the back of my property. It flooded my fences out. It strewed debris all the way across my pastures. 42 acres is a lot of land. It washed cattle off of my property downstream. Now I'm upstream of your parcel of land you're talking about putting that water treatment plant on. I had one cow wrapped up in a tree, dead, 15 feet up downstream of my property. About 4 years ago, a young man was driving at night, driving home, and he got washed off of Littig Road under the railroad trestle and down deep into my property. Fortunately for him, his car got high center on the driver's side, and he was able to climb out and schlep through the water to safety. He was very fortunate. It's really great that he didn't die. And I know that that's not the only vehicle that's been swept off the road, but that is my personal experience. So what I'm here today for is to impress upon you the epic amount of water upstream that's going to be coming to your land that is 100% in the 100-year floodplain. It doesn't happen every 100 years. I've seen it 3 serious times and 11 times in the 29 years I've owned the property. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let's see. Is it Gail Anderson?
Hi, I'm Gail Anderson. I live on 1100, and it's been in the land that I'm on has been a part of my family for 100 years. Unfortunately, I know growth has to happen, and it's going to. I just wish it wasn't growing next to me. The event that's going to be the venue that's coming in Manor to come down on 1100 is going to be approximately a block from my house. Unfortunately, there will be a lot of noise. There will be, unfortunately, people probably intoxicated. There will be a lot of different kinds of traffic. Not that I am against a venue, because I had one of my own in Spring, Texas. And one of the things I do need to say to the person, and are you Mr. Vasquez? No, who is Mr. Vasquez? Is he here?
I'm sorry, ma'am. You have to address us.
Okay, I just needed to ask a question.
Okay.
One of the things he does need to know, I was president of the Houston Restaurant Association, and I fought the dram shot law because it's a terrible law. And you can be sued if you leave there and hit a car. Your bartender can be sued as well. And they can sue anybody working on the property. So he needs to be aware of this, and you need to be aware of this. Because with 700 people on this 1100 off of 290, is not a good place for 290 to have that kind of traffic on Saturday night. We've got enough wrecks, as all of you know, all around, and I do hope there's some way we can stop this. I'm not against him having a business. I just wish it wasn't a block for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then Bernard Christensen. Did I pronounce that correct? Did I pronounce that correctly?
Beg your pardon?
Did I say your name correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
I'm kind of at a loss to what to say here. This particle land that's wanting to be put into have a venue built on it kind of goes against me. That has been my home for many, many years. But I don't have anything to say about it now, what happens, other than I'd rather see something else happen with that land. Be something that is has to do with agriculture or industry of some type. I'm at a loss again. So that land was in my family from 1906 to the time it was sold in the 50s. And since then, that was a cotton gin. We went out of business in the 50s. And we junked the machinery out. And it was sold to a company in Austin as junk. The people that junked it out, when they got into it, they got all the good metal out of it, and they found out that all the beams that the building was made out of, is all steel building, were painted with red lead paint, which is a very poisonous thing. And I don't know, it never bothered us, but if somebody else was to get in there and do something, it might. And also, I agree with Ms. Anderson about the traffic. And there is not a speed limit on that FM 1100 that is obeyed. So that is about all I've got to say about it. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Okay. This concludes our public comment section. We're going to move into our public hearing. Public hearing number 1, conduct a public hearing on a specific use permit for an event center on lot 1 on 3.75 acres more or less, being TCAT parcel number 248115 and being located at 14122 FM 1100. Mr. Burrell.
Mayor Council, my name is Michael Burrell, the Development Services Director for the City of Manor. This specific use permit request is to allow for an event center at the 14122 FM 1100. I want to note to the council that this property is already zoned C2 medium commercial. So the zoning request was made last year with the intent of this ultimately becoming a specific use or getting a specific use permit to allow for an event center. And whether or not an event center is there, other medium commercial usages are allowed by right, because the zoning ordinance in place does not stipulate any restrictions outside of what our code does as it is.
Questions, comments, council members?
Mr. Burrell, if this was to be denied, what other uses can be put there that would probably be just as concerning as the event center?
If you give me a quick second, I can pull up our...
Under our code.
Yes, I can pull that up real fast. Pardon me, it's very small on my phone screen, so I have to scroll left and right to see what's permitted and what is not. You could have childcare centers, clubs or lodges, communication services or facilities, construction and, oh, nope, that's too far over. Construction and equipment sales minor. You can have consumer repair services. You can have, I'm looking for things that are permitted by right, not just specific use. Game rooms can be applied for via specific use. You can have general retail sales such as convenience stores or general retail stores. Hotels are conditional. Laundry services. Office buildings, either government, medical, or professional. Off-site accessory parking. Religious assembly is allowed by right in any zoning category. Restaurants. And these are the more traffic-intensive uses that could go on the lot just by right as a C2 zoning.
Okay, thank you.
How many people will the event center be legally allowed to have in there?
So it's based on your square footage or parking through our zoning code. So one moment, I don't know the exact number, but I can definitely find that. So for event centers, you get one space for each 100 square feet of the assembly or event area, and that's based on like your gross floor area, the footprint of the building.
Can you repeat that again?
One space for every 100 square feet of assembly/event area. So the footprint of your building, say you have a 5,000 square foot building, you can have a maximum of 50 parking spaces.
50 what spaces?
Parking spaces.
Parking spaces. What is the capacity for the actual facility though?
The applicant is here, I believe, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, 600? 410? 410 is the intended maximum capacity, but there are building code regulations in place that can determine whether or not that's feasible. At this point, it's just conceptual, as this is an attempt to be allowed to apply for an event center.
Other questions, council members?
Besides the two that we heard previously, has anyone else had any concern or came to you about anything?
Yes, at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting prior to this meeting, we had a concerned citizen approach us about the parking as well as the ingress and egress from the site due to 1100 not being the widest of roads, nor having particular traffic safety precautions in place for people entering and exiting in mass volumes. They have additionally sent an email that's been provided for your review. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that, but that's for this item.
Michael, were any of those questions addressed at the P&Z by anyone?
So, as with many preliminary items, be it zoning, specific use permits, or things of that nature, it's hard to create an answer when a site plan hasn't been submitted for review, because ultimately we don't have any code or guidelines to judge it based off of. I can give you a general answer of whatever they do, they'll have to submit traffic counts that can lead to a traffic impact analysis, and based off that analysis, it'll require certain improvements to the roadway. But until we have that actual data so we can run the numbers and see what needs to be done, it's not realistic to provide an answer at this time. Because there are also constraints just around the sizing of their building. The applicant is suggesting 410 occupancy, but you have to pay attention to your building setbacks, your occupancy limits. You have to look at your fire constraints of how many people you can have in a building. There are a lot of layers that go into, even after this step, what allows them to construct what they're attempting to construct.
In our code, it says, see if I can get back to it. I guess in section 14.02.017 is where it's under. And it says event center. And you said it's already zone C2?
Yes, sir. This was brought to the council for consideration last year, as is the zoning presented in your backup.
So on the chart, it already has a C under there. Under the event center. On that chart. Commercial. So I guess I'm looking for where it says the need for the special use permit.
Pardon me, I'm trying to scroll through this and find it.
You said conditional or commercial? Conditional.
My apologies. I misread my own ordinance. They're zoned for C1, not C2. The initial request was for C2. The council lowered it to C1
Okay.
for specific use.
Yeah, so that's why it's a conditional / special use permit. Okay.
Yes, sir. My apologies. Small screen.
No worries.
If there is a concern about the parking at the backside of the venue, would they be willing to put like a gravel drive?
The applicant is here if you would like to ask them for questions or.
She said yes.
So, and what is the specific in the special use permit? Is it just to grant the, because the code says that we need to grant the special use permit because of the proximity to a resident, or what's the rationale for the need for the special use permit for C1?
The intensity of use, since it's an event center, there's anticipated to be high traffic on the days that it is in use. And
Okay.
since this is a C1, not C2 medium commercial, C1's a lighter intensity, but the specific use permit allows for more leniency while maintaining the lesser options that fall along with C1, if that makes sense. So an event center can be a heavy intensive use, but it's not going to be active every day, nor will it require a high like volume to be maintained. So it can be a heavy use, but there's the possibility that it's not. That's why the specific use allows for you to consider the location, proximity to other residents, and the preliminary plan, hence why they provided to determine if it is an acceptable use within that zoning category for the site.
Michael, if I remember correctly, this is the property where they were willing to put extra buffer space to accommodate for the neighbors.
I believe so.
Because I'm looking at the backside of the property and it seems to have an awful lot of space back there. And the venue itself is actually not quite so big. And it's 410 people versus the 600 or 700 that was actually written.
Will there be any outdoor events hosted here?
You have to come up to the mic.
Please state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Rocio Velasquez. The owner and applicant also for this property. And it's going to be mainly inside, but I mean, it's going to be mainly inside events. But if there's a need to have outside, we can always come to the city to see if they would give permission for that.
Do I have another question for her?
Thank you.
What are the questions, council members?
Mayor, Council, I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing on item number 1.
We have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Wallace. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilwoman Mesqua. Any questions to the motion?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it appropriate to close the public hearing before the concerns of some of the residents that had came to Michael before they were addressed? Or is it possible to come back? Because if that has an impact on the decision that is made later on our part, like with the concerns of the traffic, with the concerns of the streets, the sound, and the other things that they brought forth to the planning and zoning, even though it's not for planning and zoning to have it addressed there, but here. And so if it gets closed before we know the further actions that'll be taken past like the site plan, is there room for the residents to come back and have a public hearing on it, or to hear from the public to know that those concerns have been addressed appropriately?
What is, oh, go ahead.
It was legal.
I don't need my glasses. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Veronica Rivera, Assistant City Attorney. Councilmember Hill, you can still close the public hearing and direct staff to work with the owner to address those concerns through the process of this project. And you can also place conditions on your specific use permit as well. So again, you don't need to have the public hearing left open, especially if you're going to take action. You would need to close the public hearing.
Is there also room where, if development service, if they work with the people who have the concern, but then that we know also, like how it's been resolved, or as they go through?
Sure. So one of the things that you can do is postpone the item and have them work with the owner and the neighborhood or the concerned citizens so that they can come to an agreement. And that way, when you're ready to take action on the permit itself, you are given that information that things either have been resolved or that they have come to an agreement.
With that information, do you have any questions to your council members about the public hearing, or are you good?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you all, council, would you like to reconsider the motion to include where development services works with the?
But that would be
This is
for
the
the
public
that would
hearing.
be for the item, not the public hearing.
But my public hearing part, what about that?
Well,
I
this is
need
just
to
the
take
public
action to
hearing.
close it anyway. Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is just for the public hearing. So this doesn't. When the item comes up, that would be when you had a conversation about that piece.
So
Because
you
this
were
is just the
saying
hearing part. So
close the public hearing anyway to take action later.
yes.
Oh,
Did you want to have questions answered under the public hearing still?
no, I'm good.
Okay.
I'll wait.
All right. Other questions to the motion? Being none, all in favor of closing the public hearing? All right. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Okay. Moving right along to the second public hearing. Conduct a public hearing on a PUD amendment for Main Heights subdivision being located to the northeast of the intersection of US Highway 290 and Old Cabral Road, Manor, Texas. Yes, sir.
Mayor, Council, Michael Burrell, Development Services Director for the City of Manor. I have been informed by our legal counsel that I neglected to include the ordinance. So it is my request that we leave the public hearing open so that we can come back on June 4th for the continuation of the public hearing and first reading of the ordinance for the PUD amendment.
Okay.
Mayor, Council, I'd like to make a motion that we leave the public hearing for item number 2 open until June 4th. That's it?
We have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Wallace. Is there a second? Second by Councilwoman Weir. Any questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Now we have a report. Fiscal year 2025 Capital Improvement Project CIP update. Mr. Frank Filon.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
I'm Frank Phelan with GBA, the city engineer. And tonight we'll be discussing with you all the 2025 Capital Improvements Program. Give a minute here for people to clear out. This presentation is a high-level presentation to the council. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. A high-level presentation to the City Council with regard to the Capital Improvements Program. This is the really the first time that I'm aware of in the city's history that we've had this comprehensive kind of capital improvements programming. The Capital Committee's been working on this for many months, but I want to back up just a little bit and talk a little bit about CIP programming. So go to the purpose of a capital improvements program. It supports the rapid growth that the city has been experiencing for some time, provides guidance with regard to prioritization of infrastructure and improvements, guide the city's investments over the years to come, and it will align the city's activities with the comprehensive plan that the city adopted, as well as other master planning efforts and so forth and so on. So it's a very valuable tool for the city to use as it continues to grow and expand. I'd like to talk just a little bit about and give some great credit to people who've been doing very hard work on this. We have council members Amezcua and Hill, the city manager, Mr. Moore, our economic development director, Scott Jones, Belen Pena with finance, Matt Woodard, public works, and Michael Burrell in development services. And then our staff has been working with that team. The group has been meeting now sometimes a few times a month to try and put all of this information together. The criteria that we're using are based in several pieces. One is, the city's priorities that are, outlined in some of the documents that I mentioned earlier, the growth projections that the city has adopted last year and has been utilizing in different planning and financing efforts, available funding mechanisms, and then to meet the infrastructure needs that the city has as it grows. Quick definition, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this as far as what a capital improvement project is, but it's really any major improvement that the city does. And so previously, the capital improvements projects have been pretty well relegated to water and wastewater. This is the first time that we have something that covers all the different classifications that the city is anticipating. So the different project types that are included in this one are broken into 6 different categories. We have municipal facilities, which are things like city halls, libraries, public works facilities, and so forth. Parks and recreations, which can be recreation centers, playgrounds, trails, parks, and then stormwater, drainage and flood control, and water quality for stormwater. Transportation, roads and sidewalks and bike lanes and traffic controls like signalization and so forth. And then the water and wastewater with collection, treatment, and reclaimed water for the wastewater side, and then supply, storage, and distribution on the water side. So it's a diverse set of types of projects that are considered in this document. So what was created, because previously there would be 10, 20 projects, in a plan, maybe sometimes 25, was a need to provide a source document for each different project. And so a charter was created for every single individual project, which includes a data sheet and then a unique map. And the data sheets are kind of the one-stop shop to go and get information on a project. And I'll talk a little bit about the specifics of those. And then the map just provides the area where the project is located, as well as some maps by different classification types, so you can see how all the different pieces fit together, not only for city projects, but for some other projects that relate to city infrastructure, like roadway projects that are maybe Travis County or TxDOT or in the Campo plan, and we'll talk about all those at a very high level as well too. So this is kind of fine print here, but what this is that data sheet, and it includes, the identification of the project, where it is, what the status of the project is, and a description of what the project is. And then there are elements in there to provide for scheduling. Right in the center is an area for project needs and benefits, and so this is where we tie to whether it's coming out of a master plan or out of the comprehensive plan, and particularly with the comprehensive plan, it's tied to specific comprehensive plan action items. So we can point to every single project that's related to that, which is the vast majority of them, and how it enhances and advances the city's comprehensive plan. So it's not just some plan sitting on top of a filing cabinet somewhere, but it's a living document and it's being carried out through these activities. We include things like predecessors, so you can look at this and go, well, this other project has to happen first before this one occurs. And then the origin, again, kind of where it came from. And then there are detailed financial projections to assist with financial cash flows, as well as sources and uses of funds for each project, which sometimes you can have multiple sources of funds that fund a project. So now for some big numbers. So the overall CIP summary, all identified projects that are currently on the list, and this is still in draft form. These aren't final numbers, but they're in the neighborhood. We're looking at roughly $780 million worth of projects, which is next order of magnitude for the city. To put that in a little bit of perspective, with the city's size, somewhere 30,000-ish or pushing that. The city of Pflugerville, directly to the north, their official population in 2022 was 65,000. They're upwards of that now, probably in the 70s somewhere realistically. They have 2.3 billion or 2,300 million, about 3 times the amount of capital projects. So this isn't an inordinate amount of capital work for a city of this size with the kind of growth that's projected. Plus, there are some really large projects that are ambitious that the city is looking at moving forward with. So what we did to narrow things down a little bit, partially out of a timing element, because some of these plans go out 15 years and longer, not all of the projects need to be considered in the shorter term. And so we developed a higher priority summary, and that number is 580 million at this point. And out of that, we're looking at about almost 30% of that are the municipal facilities. So those things like the city hall and those kinds of buildings and so forth. Parks and Rec at 62 million is about 11%. Stormwater, which it doesn't even really register on there at this point, is only 1.3 million. Relatively speaking, it doesn't even hit a full percentage point. But we have transportation at 95 million, and then water and wastewater almost equal at 126 million. So that's the overall balance of capital projects that are projected. As far as project IDs, we needed to create a unique set of identifiers. I won't go into all the details of the different project identifiers, but what this does is it provides a key. And so these projects are being inserted in a GPS data set. And so as the city continues to advance, this can be part of larger data sets to track and even provide, maybe in the future, online access so that the citizenry can go online and see where the projects are and pull up a data sheet on it and see what's happening with it and so forth. So that was an important piece, that this be set up in that way, and again, kind of laying the groundwork for future advancements in city systems. They include cost estimate calculations. All of the cost estimates that are in this plan are in the current 2025 dollars. They do have rather robust contingency costs built into them. partially because there may be a few years before these projects get initiated, and also that we've got some unknowns right now with what's happening with tariffs and their effects. There's a lot of uncertainty, particularly around things like steel and electrical gear and whatnot. And then there are soft costs allocated in there as well for design and construction management and testing and inspection and so forth. We came up with some approaches for estimating timing on different projects and different project types and sizes. And this was to provide just some initial project timing, as projects kind of get moved up and are more, immediate within the schedule. Those schedules get refined further, specific for that project and maybe project uniques once it gets better defined. So we've just done that so that there can be some projections of what costs could look like over time. So an example CIP project, we chose a wastewater one. This is a copy of the overall wastewater map that includes all of the planned wastewater projects. And then we have the actual filled-in data sheet. And again, I don't expect you all to be able to read this, but it includes all of the information that we had talked about before. In this case, it addresses, this particular project is the East 290 sewer extensions. And so, we can tie it back to infrastructure and facilities goals within the comprehensive plan. And so it helps achieve goal 1, which was economic development for this project. It also will ultimately have sources and uses of funds in there, and so the city, when it's putting together financial plans for bond issuances and budgets and so forth, can project what cash flows are going to be needed and so forth. And then for each project, there's a unique map that shows the location of that particular improvement, so it can be tracked and located. So we have an overall project map. Again, it's a very large map, but it contains all the projects, and that's the type of map that later could be converted to an internet-based or web-accessed map where you can go on and click and pull up projects and so forth. And we definitely see that in the future. There's been a priority list that's developed that result in those numbers, and it has all the different project categories that we've discussed. And you can see there's quite a few projects in just the priority list. These are draft projects still, and so we're still finalizing those pieces with the capital committee. And then I had mentioned earlier that there are some coordination efforts that are important for the city to be able to anticipate with other, particularly transportation entities, and that would be Travis County and TxDOT as well as Campo. And so we have maps that look at city infrastructure relative to planned Travis County improvements, and so where there may be opportunities to partner on projects. Those things can be identified well in advance, and conversations can be held to provide that coordination. So we had 24 and 25 Travis County roads, as well as all of the TxDOT roads. We worked with them on getting all of their planned roads that are within the city's ETJ, so that we can coordinate well with TxDOT as well as Travis County. And I think that is it for this piece. So I know that's a lot of information at a very high level. Wanted to kind of give you this heads up in advance because the document is several hundred pages long. It's very involved. We do have nice summaries up at the front of it, but this way, at least when you receive that document, when the city takes a look at it in the next month or so, you'll have a background and context for it, and hopefully it'll be an easier document to navigate as a result. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions or comments or direction the council may have with regard to that effort.
Yeah, can we get some corrections on the CIP fire project list where we're talking about our municipal facilities or park facilities? We have timelines listed, completion of your timelines that council hasn't been told that exist. So you have a 2029 timeline for the library, City Hall. We haven't been told that that's the timeline for the project to be completed. You also have that it's planned but unfunded, and that is actually bonded. So I want to make sure that whatever we're putting forward facing, one, is something that we've approved, and two, that is accurate in information, because we actually, the library, City Hall is funded, as well as the recreation center.
Yes, so yes, we can absolutely make any corrections that are necessary. This is still in the draft form.
But it's going to be on the internet. Or it's already
no,
on the internet.
No, this is not being posted yet. This is still, the committee is working. This is a draft document that's very much in formation now.
Is this report on the internet right now? So it's on the internet right now, this report. So people will go through and they will look at the report, even though it says draft, and they're going to say, then we just bond for these projects. And y'all are saying that y'all are not going to do it until 2029, and we haven't said that. So I want to make sure that we don't put dates on there or unfunded things that we haven't approved for as council, because it's a report that's posted. So I'd rather go back and correct it and put a TBD on the completion year. And then for the funded, make sure that we do list that it is funded, because the voters have voted for that, and we've allocated funds for it. We haven't drawn down the funds, but the funds are there for those two projects.
Okay.
So I understand what you're saying. It's not done, so it's not out. But however, we're talking about it right now, so it's out. And so we want to make sure that it doesn't circulate. Someone says, "Oh, I heard in the meeting today that they don't even have funding for the city hall. They've been telling us what happened to the bond money? They misused the money." We don't want to put out that miscommunication and then have to try to clear up all of that. So if we can just fix this, make sure that it's posted correctly, that this is bonded, it's funded because we have the bond dollars, and then take out those dates. Because council hasn't approved any dates for any of those yet. And then we need to make sure we get a date, that timeline that's approved by council, because I think we have a timeline, an internal timeline about when these things should be done, and I'm pretty sure it's not 2029.
Okay, good enough.
And so that would be the completion year column, the projected status column, project status column, and then the funding source column. Just making sure that those are accurate, either with the real information or a TBD. Thank you, sir. Any other questions on the report, council members?
You said it's just a draft, so that priority list that you showed on there, that's not necessarily the priority that it is in.
No, that's not and again, all of this is going to come to council for consideration. So this is just the committee that is involved in drafting the recommendations, but then everything has to come before city council before anything is approved.
And a lot other CIPs I've heard of, they're usually like 4 to 10 years. Is this the longest one I saw on there is 4 years that you had projected?
So it's for the financial purposes. It's a 6-year period, but it includes 2024 up through 2029. So it's looking ahead 5 years basically.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? Again, I'd like to see us also include specifically around the anything that's going to require additional staffing. I'd like to see the projection of staffing needs, because that's an additional cost. I understand that this is going to be paid differently, but just so we can understand and have that full implication of what the decision we're making, because again, building a facility without thinking out the staffing piece is not a wise decision, because you end up building something that you can't open. And so looking at staffing costs, and then as we were talking about earlier in our workshop, ensuring that there's any facility wise or parks and all those kinds of things that we're thinking about maintenance and upkeep along with those costs, so we can again have a sustainable financial estimate of what we're doing in that area. I know we do that pretty well with the water and wastewater. I want to make sure we do that in all those other areas so we don't build something we can't keep up.
Right. Yeah. There's significant administrative costs with some of those pieces. Yes. Mm-hmm. Any other questions, comments?
All right. Well, thank you, sir.
I did.
Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to make a comment, just from being a part of the committee, and I guess when council gets a chance to look over it, when they see the big master plan for all of this, because you all have different committees, and it kind of seems like some of the things that you do overlap and they encompass it. This seems like one that was really collaborative. Maybe that's not the right word, but just where this covers everything. So it touches on all of our projects like parks and trees and things like that in some of the other areas. And so if in your committees, when y'all think about the expansion or even the maintenance of what you're doing, if you see where we've put in the priority on the priority list, and you see where this is a higher priority, even with like the PIDs and the PUD committees, when y'all see, you're like, hey, this street's gonna really need this more than that. It may not be on our top priority, but if you see that, you know more about that, that would be something cool to look at, and then let us know so we can update that.
Thank you for that insight. Other questions? All right. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you so much.
Moving on to the consent agenda, all of the following items on the consent agenda are considered to be self-explanatory by council and when be enacted one motion. There will be no separate discussion on items unless requested by a mayor or a council member, in which the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Number 3, consideration, discussion, and possible action to approve city council minutes of May 7, 2025, city council regular meeting. Number 4, consideration, discussion, possible action on accepting the April 2025 city council monthly reports. 5, consideration, discussion, possible action on accepting the April 2025 departmental reports. 6, consideration, discussion, possible action on a resolution amending and designating the authorized representatives of the city of Maine and authorization to complete necessary transactions in connection with the TextPool Prime investment accounts and providing for other related matters thereto. Number 7, consideration, discussion, possible action on a resolution accepting petitions for voluntary annexation of a 25.24 acre tract and a 45.838 acre tract, more or less being located in Travis County, Texas, and adjacent to contiguous to the city limits, providing for an open meeting and other related matters. Consideration. Number 8, consideration, discussion, possible action on a resolution accepting petitions for voluntary annexation of a 56.625 acre tract and a 118.76 acre tract, more or less being located in Travis County, Texas, and adjacent and contiguous to the city of limits, providing for an open meeting and other related matters. Number 9, consideration and discussion and possible action on a resolution accepting petition for voluntary annexation of 161.49 acres, more or less being located in Travis County, Texas, and adjacent and contiguous to the city limits, providing for an open meeting and regular other related matters. 10, consideration, discussion, and possible action on a resolution accepting petition for voluntary annexation of 142 acres, more or less being located in Travis County, Texas, and adjacent and contiguous to the city limits, providing for an open meeting and other related matters. Council members, is there anything that you would like to pull on the agenda? Please speak now, or I'll take a motion for approving the consent agenda.
Mayor and Council, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as read.
We have a motion on the floor you want to say approve?
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as read.
We have a motion for approval of the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilman Moreno. I'm sorry, approved by motion by Councilwoman Wallace, approved by second by Councilman Moreno. Any questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. All right. Let's see. Moving down the agenda. Item number 11, consideration, discussion, and possible action on a special use permit for an event center for one lot on 3.75 acres, more or less, being TCAD parcel 248115 and being located at 14122 FM 1100 Manor, Texas. This is the one we just talked about in public comments. Councilwoman Hill, Deja Hill, did you have questions or comments?
I think I just wanted to have clarification from our attorney. I think she understood what I was asking, but then just to make sure, because I wanted to be able to include that in a request for council to consider.
So if you have any recommendations and would like to either make it as a condition to the specific use permit, as part of that, as they go through the process, you can add that to your motion, any specific conditions, or you could also ask for postponement and ask that in the meantime, the owner and city staff meet and work with any concerned citizens to come to either an agreement or answer any concerns, and then bring it back.
If I may, before you proceed, for this property in particular, just as standard practice, we send out notices to everyone within 300 feet. But to that point, some of those people may not actually be citizens. So whatever direction is given, I'll be sure to discern that before we proceed.
Do we know, can we be more specific about that? In regards to who is and who is not? I mean, we just heard testimony, and so I'd like to know if you know, can we be?
Mayor and Council Member Scott Jones, Economic Development Director, and one of the people who spoke here tonight contacted me that they had not been notified, and I looked on the map, and even though they are located across the street adjacent to this property, they are not in the city limits.
Thank you. Both or one? One.
We can determine who came to speak based on the speaker card submitted and the notices sent out. That property is in the city limits. I've already looked into their address. Yes, ma'am. The permanent address they list on the email is not in the city limits, of course, but the property they reference is just to the south of the subject tract.
Do we know where the 600 guest thing is coming from?
The number, I believe, was mentioned at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, but that number was subject to change, is my assumption.
Okay, because I think just a few minutes ago in public hearing, we heard 400 and something.
410, yes, sir.
Second?
410
Yeah.
for the applicant.
But then it was at P&Z, someone said 600.
I believe so.
Hello. My name is Rocio Velasquez. You were asking what again?
We're just curious because during a public hearing and on some of the email notifications we got regarding this permit, they were saying 600 guests. So my question is this, where did 600 come from?
I'm not sure. Our venue has always been smaller. The total occupancy for what we have drawn out is 410 total guests. But we plan to keep it below 350. So have more space, but not use it all. Like not, I guess,
Not make
say
it
that it's for
crowded.
400 people, because what about the bartenders? What about security? All of those people count. So that's why we would be comfortable saying 350 or less, to be able to accommodate for parking space and all other guests.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions and comments, council members? No questions, no comments? Okay, well, if there's none, then I'll take a motion. That's why y'all are searching for words or questions. I'm looking at just reiterating the notes. So planning and zoning was able to be fine with the process. And they voted unanimously 6-0 to move forward with it. Did they hear the same request and information?
So the email you have in front of you is from the
Planning and zoning one.
yes, sir. That resident is the one who spoke at the meeting,
Okay.
and they essentially addressed the same concerns that they typed out, but they wanted to make it available for the council members.
Okay. Feel free to ask more questions. Okay, well, if there's no questions, I will take a motion at this time.
Mayor Council, I'd like to make a motion that we approve a specific use permit for an event center, one lot on 3.75 acres, more or less being TCAD parcel number 248115 and being located at 14122 FM 1100, Maynard, Texas.
We have a motion on the floor by Councilmember Moreno. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilwoman Mesmer. Any questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 5-2. Number 12, consider discussion and possible action on a PUD amendment for the Maynard Heights subdivision being located to northeast of the interaction of US Highway 290 and Old Kimber Road, Maynard, Texas. And this one we're going to postpone.
Yes, sir.
Since
We'll
we
be
have
postponing that.
okay, until June 4th as well.
Yes, sir.
So we need a motion for that.
Mayor Council, I'd like to make a motion that we postpone item number 12 until our June 4th council meeting.
We have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Wallace. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilwoman Mesmer. Any questions to the motion? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Second final reading, consideration, discussion, and possible action on the ordinance rezoning 2 lots on 23.809 acres, more or less, and being TCAD parcel 236885, also known as 12522 and 12542, Old Kimber Road, Maynard, Texas, from A, agriculture to IN-2, heavy industrial. Any additional questions, council members, on this project?
Mayor Council, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the second and final reading for ordinance number 788, rezoning 2 lots on 23.809 acres, more or less, and being TCAD parcel number 236885, also known as 12522 and 12542 Old Kimbrell Road, Maynard, Texas, from agricultural to IN2 heavy industrial.
We have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Wallace. Is there a second?
I second.
A second by Councilwoman Mesmer. Any questions to the motion? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, moving down the line to item number 14, consideration, discussion, and possible action on statement of work number 19 to master service agreement with George Butler Associates for engineering services for the Maynard Downtown Drainage Study Project. Yes, sir.
All right, Mayor and Council. So this project is a focused drainage study. It's to develop a drainage plan for the downtown area. The area of the study is generally from 290 south, bounded on the east and the west side by the Gilliland Creek and Wilbarger Creek floodplains, and then on the southern side by Brenham Blake Manor Road generally. The purpose of this is to provide stormwater solutions for the downtown area within Manor, particularly with regard to infill and existing structures, so that development can continue in downtown. There are some real challenges, particularly with stormwater detention, and in order to facilitate economic development within the city, as well as provide for enhanced stormwater facilities. We're proposing to do this study. This study has some sort of decision tree pieces built into it. There's the initial, collection of all the information, the formation of a model, and an analysis of that. And part of that effort will be to look at whether or not early beneficial release is appropriate or not. What that effectively boils down to is a routing analysis that's done on those drainage basins to see if it's better to release the water early, in advance of a storm surge that would come down through the basin, or if it's better to detain it. And so depending upon the results of that, then either a system could be installed that would just convey the flows to the creeks, or a regional detention solution is what would be contemplated as an alternative if early beneficial release is not advantageous. And so that this includes provisions to do some preliminary design for regional facilities and looking at some properties and come up with a conceptual plan, and then some proposed projects to construct the conveyances and build regional detention if it's necessary. So we've been working with Public Works and putting together this piece, and it's to be funded through a couple of years worth of departmental budgets.
Okay. Questions, comments, council members?
What would that mean in reference to the bar ditches that are on people's property, where water is being stagnant?
So are you talking like the bar ditches, like kind of up, a little bit north of here on Lexington or
there's some right around here.
Yeah.
So just in people's yards.
Right.
Because when we had the ice storm and I think a major rain before, people had to dig deeper down, but the stagnant water also causes the mosquitoes and everything else to be heavily populated around here, and that's a concern by a lot of the downtown neighbors. So how will this drainage project help alleviate some of that?
Right. So the primary purpose of it is to convey the stormwater out. A secondary piece can be to address those areas of interim or temporary ponding. And that really would be approached more through the maintenance activities typically. Now there are certain sections of town where, you know, there haven't been any ditch improvements in a long time. You know, if you recall, you know, back in the early 2000s, there were several projects done under a bond program to address about 3/4 of Old Town Manor and provide conveyances. And with that effort, we were able to eliminate recurring, ongoing flooding of houses and the city hall and those sorts of things that have been in place for 100 years. So this project, we could provide and add recommendations in there for maintenance, which is basically going in and cleaning out the ditches, clearing out the culverts and everything so it can drain. But the primary function is really to get the stormwater out of town to be able to build or you know, provide regional detention so that when there is new development going on in town, the full site could be utilized for the development and not have to be encroached upon by a detention pond on site. So it's a little bit of two different functions. This is really more of a floodplain kind of and conveyance of stormwater flows rather than the maintenance activity of just making sure that finished final grading on an existing bar ditch is sufficient to drain properly. So we can provide the recommendations in there, but it's a maintenance activity. And you know, right now the city doesn't have a grade-all or a kind of facility that's really a piece of equipment that's ideally suited for that. And so it's a challenging thing to go in and clean out those bar ditches unless you have that type of equipment.
Matt, wasn't the grade-all one of the equipments that we were talking about getting?
Oh, you do have a grade-all now? I didn't know that. They have a grade-all.
Okay, because that's one of the concerns about the stormwater is the settling. Because like what's this road right here? Burnet? Is that Burnet?
Mm-hmm.
Some of the houses are lower than the road,
right?
So the water settles on their property, and so that's one of the concerns is getting that fixed. Not necessarily, well, we do need to worry about the new buildings coming in, but we need to alleviate some of the stresses on our current residents as far as that flooding and the stormwater, all of that going on.
And there are definitely opportunities within the scoping of this piece to look at specific areas. You know, that issue has been an issue for a long time. You know, with the rural roadside sections where you've got the bar ditches, instead of having, like you have in the newer subdivisions, the depressed streets where all the lots drain towards the street and then you have curb and gutter that collects through the stormwater. There may be certain areas that are slated for a centralized stormwater collection. It's certainly not going to be the whole old downtown area. That would be extremely expensive because you have to take your roads and drop them several feet, which would mean adjusting all of your underground infrastructure and utilities. And so that would be gas lines, water, sewer, telephone, all of it would have to be adjusted. And so it's not really economically viable to do that for the whole area, but there may be some select areas that are better suited for that, closer really more towards the commercial areas that are further south in town that are proximal to the drainage ditches. But if there are specific areas that need attention, certainly we can, you know, put those in. But again, it's that's more of a maintenance activity. You know, we can go in and we've already got established some standard ditch sections. And so those could be restored back to those sections just to make sure they drain properly. You know, it's yeah.
I have, I guess, a question in regards to the task. These are all the tasks listed. Are these all tasks that your office is going to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have all the people in house to be able to do all those tasks.
Okay. Okay.
And all of the tasks may not be done. So there are kind of three scenarios there at the end. So, 1 through 7, the first total there for $338,987. That task includes doing all of the study and preliminary design, including regional detention. But if it's determined that regional detention isn't necessary, then items 1 through 6 would be done with the cost of $390,000. Now there's an additional alternate in there as well too, and that is a community outreach programming, and so we put that in as an alternate. And so if that's not selected to be done, then the cost would be $236,790. So the community engagement, if you turn to page 6, under task 5, community engagement includes a couple of workshops and community events and stakeholder meetings and so forth to address kind of the issues that Councilwoman Wallace brought up and any others that may not have been identified.
Other questions, council members? If there's no other questions, I entertain a motion.
Sorry, slow. Is it possible that, well, the need for the downtown drainage study is important, and I think with timing, we talked about it. We talked about like the funding of it and things like that in our budget workshop meeting, and so because there were still some questions, I guess, that were on the table and that may come back at the next time and being invited to the next budget meeting. Could we not make a final decision on this one? That's my thought. That's my question.
Are you asking to bring it back on the 4th because of the budget conversations we've had?
Yeah, but I guess if there was an impact on it, that was going to be like a timing thing.
My understanding is the funding for it is already allocated for this year and then the next, right, Matt?
I think what she's asking is, is this time sensitive or not?
As far as the timing, it's been impressed upon us for the economic development purposes and development of existing downtown projects that are proposed, and one I think that's even So that was the reason for it, was to facilitate economic development in downtown.
Okay, so let me ask this then: will anything go wrong if we wait till June 4th? He's saying no.
I'm unaware of any impending like inundation of buildings or anything like that is pertinent. I don't think there are any non-conforming pieces right now, so a delay to be able to accommodate budget discussions and so forth, I don't think would have any. It's not going to be a threat to public health and safety or something like that.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, Council, I think it'd be.
Does that answer your question?
I'm sorry.
Councilwoman Hill? Okay. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Moore.
No, I said based on the conversation we had today and some other things that we've discussed in the committee, if we just wait, then we can come back and make sure if anything downtown is pressing, we should be able to address that with the council on June 4th.
Okay.
Yes, sir. For Jones's sake.
Any other questions, council members?
Was this kind of brought to the forefront because of the apartments and the flooding that was happening behind them?
Sorry. Council, Scott Jones, Economic Development Director. I don't think there was an issue regarding flooding that was happening. Actually, there was an issue with the alleyway, I think, and how with the buildings that were going to be built to the north of them, how those buildings were going to affect the existing building that was built there. I think there was more of a congruency between the two buildings, and if those buildings to the north are going to be built by Build Block and they shed water, how that was going to be affected by what was existing in the parking lot on the building that's there at 109 Lexington now. So I think that was the issue. It wasn't an issue of it causing any flooding, just what happens when they build the buildings on that Build Block's going to build next door. So I think that was the issue they were trying to work out.
Yeah, you good, Councilwoman, on your question? Okay. You need to follow up?
We just want to make sure that when the buildings are built, that it's not affecting the current residents that are already there. And there wasn't a problem with the apartments and the water not flowing and it coming into the properties behind the apartments. So we need to make sure that, I thought that maybe that was the reason that we needed to jump on this plan sooner than later.
And there was an issue with I think the neighbor to the south of them expressed an issue with some water coming onto their property. But yeah, that is one of the reasons for this study, is to take care of all those things.
Yeah, so there are some areas that are exceedingly flat, and getting the water out and to the ditches to be able to convey it to the creeks is a challenge. And so this would specifically address those pieces to provide, positive drainage for these areas.
My last question on this one is, we did an overlay for TERS. So when are those funds going to be available so that it actually goes to that mechanism versus the operation budget?
They start getting collected as soon as the taxes are collected for the next year. So the base year is in 24, and as soon as taxes are paid for 25, there'll be an increment. So that they just keep getting collected every year. So 24 to 25 taxes will be an increment, and that increase will be collected, and they'll be available for the TERS.
So December, January, February, whatever.
So yes, as soon as those taxes are paid.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, did you have a specific motion? Councilwoman Hill or anyone? I guess that you want to move this to the 14th, because that would be your motion. If not, then we would then council members, your motion would just be, to the 4th, or your motion would be to accept with modifications, or not accept, or approve modifications, not approve, or move it to the 4th. That would be your options.
I would like to make a motion to move this item to the June 4th meeting. To postpone to the June 4th meeting.
Okay, Councilwoman Hill has a motion on the floor for postpone this item to June 4th. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilwoman Wallace. Any questions to the motion? Any questions to the motion? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Was there any opposed? Those just late hands coming down. Late hands. Okay. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. 15, consideration, discussion, possible action regarding the authorization of a construction agreement implementing the painting of the exterior of 3 water tanks with newly designed city logo.
Good evening,
Yes,
Mayor, Council. Matt Woodard, Public Works Director. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you today to actually talk about this item. We've been working on this for quite some time. So I definitely want to thank all the staff that has been involved in helping get this to this point. You'll notice I did kind of make it very little difficult for Veronica up front. I was going to put two of these into one agenda, but we ended up separating it. You'll notice that we finally have gotten to the point where we want to paint our elevated tanks and our ground storage tanks and put our new logo on it. So we actually had 3 different vendors come out, and 2 of the vendors that we have are on tips and buy board. And we actually have an Excel sheet, hopefully, that you're able to get along with the summary, where we actually broke down with 2 different vendors that we want to use to save the city $29,638 by utilizing both vendors. One vendor, which is on this item here, is with USG, is also known as Utility Services Company. They would be actually painting and rehabilitating. Well, I should say that they would go down and they'll pressure wash the tank, go back up through and repaint the tank for us, and then we'll have a logo put on. For USG, we'll do the elevated storage tanks at East Elevated, West Elevated, and the Sonic Tower, water tower. In the next agenda item, you'll notice the other one is for the other piece for the groundwater tanks that we have, but I can talk more on that one when that agenda comes around. Through the Excel sheet, you can see where we actually got the total cost from both vendors. And then when we noticed that we could break it out on where the elevated tanks were cheaper on one vendor and the ground storage tanks were cheaper with the other vendor. Fortunately, too, which is good, is the Sonic Tower would be able to be painted as soon as we could get the agreement and a contract signed, and we could also work with the other vendor on the 150th logo. We could actually get that painted, rechanged with our logo on it. So we can, I know it's been kind of a little outdated on the, I think 150th went a few years back. We do look forward to a lot of the new elevated ground storage tanks that we've gotten built, and some of the ones that we have would be nice to have those have the logo put on it.
Questions, comments, council members?
Did I read that this one won't include the downtown one?
This agenda, no ma'am, it won't. With the USG, it'll be on the next agenda with the other. They actually, on that one, I'll go ahead and tell you, McGuire Iron actually did the 150th logo on that tank. They're the ones that had the lower bid to put the logo on that 150th tank.
Is this already budgeted?
That's one good piece. Thank you for bringing that up. I've been blessed that Mr. Jones is working with me. He's got some funds that he has in the economic development that he is willing to put forth for this project. And I also wanted to discuss, I know on the 150th logo, they used hot funds on that. And I was wanting to see if we could consider using those funds for the rest.
When we were doing the budget last year for economic development, we included in the marketing budget, the balance of the marketing funds from the logo item. Then we had $150,000 budgeted for this item.
What is your request per funding source?
If we could, since Jones is able to give us 150 through his budget, the remaining balance, I'm sorry I did not do the math on that, but the total comes out to 196.94 with this one. The other one's 58.
Well, I think the total was 2 something, right? The total on that chart that's for all projects, right?
The 285 you saw on the first is for all of the tanks, and that 338 was for McGuire Iron for all of the tanks. And if the Excel sheet, it's actually on the Excel sheet on page 2, is broke out what each one quoted, and then the bottom option 2 is what we went for. The total, yes, yeah. total spent would be
You went with
255.
I have 255, 440.
Yes, ma'am, that's it. Thank you.
So, yeah, so 150 would be economic development. Where's the other? Say again? Yeah, where would that come from? Or what's your request from?
That's what I'm asking, if hot funds.
How much are in our hot funds?
How much in? What is the remaining? Was that 105, 441?
I think what he's asking is how much in total is in our hot funds at this moment.
I don't know the total, but I do know there's funds there.
It was in the budget. It's,
I think Deja's on.
It's over 400,000.
I'm sorry I didn't get that piece.
I see our revenues, but I don't see the balances in here. Well, I mean, I'll just be honest about it. We went and we did approve that in the past, but I was definitely not a fan of using the hot funds last time when we did it. It was, you know, a lot of folks that came in to kind of try to push that thing to happen for the 150th anniversary. But I'm kind of a traditionalist in regards to purpose intent with specialized funds, and so, you know, I'm more so. I like the idea of spending something that's going to bring something back with the brand, and so just be transparent about how I feel about that part. Yes, sir.
Scott Jones, Economic Development Director. Mr. Mayor, I have in the economic development budget for last year, I had another $80,000 in the budget for an economic development strategic plan. And I am such a fan of marketing this city and wanting to get our name out there that I'd be willing to put that economic development strategic plan I was planning for this year, I'd be willing to put it off to next year to make sure that we get those water towers painted. So I'd be willing to put that additional $80,000 toward this project to make sure that that happens, because I think we need to have our name out there and that new logo up in lights.
Thanks, sir. Did you find it? Come. What page did you find it on? Did it have its it doesn't have the balance though. It just has the annual revenue. I did see that part. There was another sheet that she gave us that had actual balances.
I do want to add that I think it would be very nice to have the logo for when you're coming in from the west side. That tank is very, very visual, and having that brand there would let you know where you're at. Sonic, I remember long time ago driving through town, it was always known as the Mustang Tower, and that's always been instilled in my mind. So,
Yeah.
you know, with the Sonic Tower having that brand up there, you would definitely know where you're at as well.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely, that tower needs to be updated. It's old. It's faded.
I drove when I lived in Dallas. I drove here through here many times on the way to Houston, and I never knew I was in Manor. And I want to know that I'm in Manor, and I want everybody else to know.
Does this include the water tower over there by New Tech?
Yes, ma'am. That's the west elevated.
I'm sure that they would highly appreciate that.
Yeah, and you'll see on another agenda item down further down is what you've seen, what we've done with the old tower with the lighting is what we want to do with the other two elevated tanks. So this is going to magnify when people go through town. You can even light up one tower for one football team on one side of the town and another color for the other team if they win. You can kind of.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's good marketing right there too. Yeah.
Definitely not against getting it painted.
I
Just on the how.
Yes,
how
sir.
it's painted.
And, and
the
I appreciate
fiscal,
Jones offering
around to it.
There's bound to be some other funds that we could make up the difference.
And I can say, Mayor, just where we're at in the timing, there may be a few corporations that would love to be able to participate, and not to take from our city brand, but to like Verizon, those that have the antennas up there, we can definitely have a circle back with them to say, so if we got to repaint them, would they be willing to, contribute toward that? Because it's going to be their antennas going to be right next to the brand. So I've had talks with T-Mobile too. So I think we can definitely see if we can get some support from those companies that want to be part of our branding.
Well, so could we talk about if one, should council members approve the associated items in this thing? Could council members, would you be interested in entertaining the idea of language that says funding sources outside of HOT? And that gives you all a chance to negotiate and see what you can find. And then if you absolutely cannot find what you need to find, and coming back in June with a request of a specific amount. Is that something that works with you all and works with you all? Or is there a timeline issue or something like that?
I think the weather is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we wanted to kind of get it through while the weather was going to be good, and the forecast is not going to be rainy for right now because hurricane season's coming up in probably August, and that's when the storms start coming in. And so we wanted to try to get it done while it's dry outside. So, I think you can include language in there. We will look for additional funding as well. But I think there's enough in the economic development budget to take care of it as necessary. But we can look for additional funding too also, because I don't really want to spend the whole economic development consulting budget on the water towers. But if we have to, we can.
Yeah.
And I did want to add that the two of the tanks would be able to be painted. Sonic would be able to be painted immediately. The west tank, definitely, now that we're getting Greg Maynor, hopefully come the end of June, we'll have that online. We could actually use that booster station while we get the west painted. The east is probably usually you want to wait when it's low flow, and that'd be kind of winter, would probably be the goal for then. But the ground storage tanks too, that's what we got to kind of look at too, as far as you can't paint them when they're full because it's too cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying we could proceed knowing that we won't have to expend everything,
right?
But we could give us a chance to be able to come back and say, "Here's something." We
and
can
address the rest in the new budget cycle.
Yes, sir. It is nice that it's quoted out per tank, so we could go to those tanks, use those funds for those certain tanks off the bat.
Okay. Well, do we have a motion to direct staff with that in that direction?
Mayor, Council would like to make a motion that we approve a construction agreement with McGuire Iron Inc. to replace 150. Wait.
Yeah, you went too far. Yeah.
Mayor Council would like to make a motion that we approve construction agreement with Utility Services Co. Inc. to paint and apply a new logo on the 3 elevated water tanks with a total cost not exceeding $196,940, and direct staff to explore other funding options, and authorize city manager to execute the construction agreement.
We have a motion on the floor by Councilmember Moreno. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilwoman Mesco. Any questions to the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Now we can move on to item number 16. Let's see, consideration, discussion, possible action regarding authorization of construction agreement implementing the painting of the exterior or 4 water tanks and the newly designed city logo. Do we have a motion on the floor?
Mayor Council would like to make a motion that we approve the construction agreement with McGuire Iron Inc. to replace the 150th logo on the downtown tank and add a new logos to 3 ground storage tanks in an amount not to exceed $58,500, and direct city staff to explore alternative funding options, and authorize city manager to execute the construction agreement.
We have a motion on the floor by Councilmember Moreno. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilwoman Mesco. Any questions to the motion? No questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Consideration, discussion, and possible action regarding the authorization of a construction agreement to install lights on the east elevated, west elevated, and sonic water tanks. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This is the one that I was just telling you about. We're going to be able to, and I forgot to mention that we actually budgeted lights also for the Sonic Tower, along with the east and west, which will, like with the old elevated, or the 150th tank that you got right now, that's pretty much any color that you can see. And we really look forward to being able to light it up in different colors and different events that come up. Raymond has done a very good job. He put this in the budget, so this is funded and through our budget. You'll notice that there's 2 different potential costs. We broke those down. It's the $44,328.30. That's was kind of current, the same kind of situation what he'd be doing right now at the tank that we have. He has to go on the site and then actually input the colors. The extra cost, what it kind of shows on here, the additional $1,914.72 would be each for location. If you wanted to do like a Bluetooth, he could do it from home or wherever he's at, and he could program the colors. He would have to go to each location if he doesn't have that, which that's up to y'all. If y'all, we'll still make it happen.
Is it hackable?
I don't know. I'm not.
You want to come up and explain, Raymond?
Got some hackers out there.
So it goes, Raymond Muniz, utility superintendent. It goes off an app, and of course you got to have a password. So it's not like you can just find I guess the Wi-Fi or whatnot and connect to it or whatnot. You have to have a password.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Other questions, council members? So, the difference between the two, one is 44,000. The one with the secure Wi-Fi, Bluetooth access app password is 50,000. That correct?
Yes, sir.
And then it has internet annual internet fee of $50 per location, so $150 a year afterwards.
Yes, sir.
Questions, council members?
Is it DFW Holiday Kings or DSW Holiday?
You're right. That's DFW. Sorry, that's a typo. Thank you for catching that.
I had another question regarding just the annual, making what budget is that going to be under the
annual-
yearly cost?
The annual internet fee, we would have to put that in our water budget. And I know sometimes that Phil does a lot of the internet stuff, so probably need to work close with him.
Be sure you think about the maintenance costs.
I'm sorry, what?
Be sure you think about the maintenance costs.
Yes, sir.
Does it come with a certain warranty?
That's a good question.
Every time you sit down, we're gonna ask another question for you.
I believe it's at least a year warranty. So far, like with anything that's been going on with the the tower over here,
Mhm.
the guys came out and he's worked on it. I mean, no charges or anything like that. He's wanted to use the tower pretty much as like kind of a advertisement as well. He's wanting to get other cities to use it and everything.
Gotcha.
So he's been really helpful with any questions I have.
Okay.
One thing I'd like to add too is that the way the lights are mounted too, they actually mount them down and then it actually reflects up. So, and I want to add that they did do the one for the 150th tank, which was very nice. Is they gave us a demo for a while, and it actually got stolen, and we didn't even get charged. So they've done us right.
And what we were trying to do with the other towers with Crossroads and Manville, we were hoping they would see they could some cost, economy of scales if they want to do something with their towers. So they may come around, but like you said, the company's willing to do some demos for them. So as people come into Maynard, they know either on 130 or 290, they know that it's a spot. And again, it's a way of just marketing the community, and we feel that they may come around at the prices for them to say, because they're going to do some maintenance at some point.
Yeah.
But they might say, hey, what Maynard's doing, we could do, and they have our costs for them to be able to do that for their towers.
Okay.
And the lights are real durable. I mean, from what they've told me, that I guess like tanks had overflowed and poured right onto the light, and it didn't damage it. I mean, you got to do some serious, I guess, like damage to like pounding it and stuff like that to really break them.
Okay. Other questions, council members? I entertain a motion. And in your motion, designate which financial option. And be sure to say DFW or D. What
It's
is
basically Dallas Fort Worth.
Yeah, DFW. Not DSW shooters.
Mayor and Council would like to make a motion that we approve the construction agreement with DFW Holiday Kings and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement in the amount not to exceed $50,072.46 and instruct. My mind went blank. Dang. And instruct city staff to look for other funding options with the annual internet fee of $50 per location.
All right, got a motion on the floor by Councilmember Moreno. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by who's that? Councilwoman Weir. Any questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Number 18, consideration, discussion, possible action on City of Maine internship program. So council members, what you have down there is, in front of you is some options about engaging youth, adults, young adults in internship opportunities. Approving the plan does not mean it starts away. We can definitely work on the phase in and readiness, or providing direction on that. But from my thoughts, it was bringing it before you all so that you can put time, attention, and questions to it, so that we can have something to adopt. So my hope is that we can be able to take in interns based on readiness in the fall, whether it be interns, and specifically because I get a lot of folks from the universities that are political science or government public affairs folks that are looking for internship opportunities. And so I'd like to be able to set us up with some of those interns opportunities around council, again, based off of our individual or collective readiness. I know the city staff are working on opportunities for in the departments, and that may take longer. And so given direction so that we could not only work out and fix the language, but also start look at a phased in process of what we was, when we would start, how we would start, where we would target at. There's also students that have expressed interest and opportunities from the high schools, and so this opportunity to build through this process to build awareness and even build future P&Z, other committee folks, and future councilmen and councilwomen, future mayors. So the proposal has language for a potential annual budget of not to exceed, I'm not sure what it was, not to exceed $42,000, but that was at a maxed out level of workers. You can go through and you can kind of see some of those internship roles was here were mostly listed for non-departmental related areas. So if you scroll down to the page where it talks about intern roles and responsibilities, there's opportunity for media and communications support, policy research and data management. And so media and communications, these are folks that can maybe help with getting messaging out for us as council members, the town halls, the community workshops, the community meetings that we're wanting to do in our tiers, maybe even assisting with some of that social media campaign stuff that's going on from there. The public research and data management, these are individuals that can actually dive into databases with city or county or state databases and actually bring back answers for you. Where, for give you an example, we were working on some policy work a couple of weeks ago, myself and Scott Jones, and another city was with us, and so we were wondering what was a specific number of what was the specific cost that we were paying to Regional Mobile what was the debt for our Regional Mobile Transit Authority from this year to that year. Well, these particular interns could then go do that work, bring back recommendations. They could also, for those that are in the public policy area, they could go and be a part of, advocating and working with the public policy or the legislative staff of legislators, and working to communicate kind of our needs and concerns in regards to those areas, so that it's pretty clear, so that they have actual information related to some of the policy things that they're thinking, because what they have are either staff or interns from universities that are doing their own research, and sometimes they don't get a chance to talk to cities and hear about the concerns or the impact of certain policies. And so when we are there talking with them, the conversations, it's a lot of I didn't know, and that kind of thing. And so if we're able to leverage our relationship with the universities and folks that are wanting to get into this area, or researchers, then these folks can actually have an opportunity to learn and lead, if you will, in that space. Then the other one is, again, helping with organizing community outreach, whether it be for the health committee activities, or it's going into information sessions for, like we were talking about earlier, was one of the portions of what Frank was talking about, that community piece forward facing in regard to communication around certain water, wastewater projects, or whether it be facility construction things related to CIP. These interns can definitely work with that. And so different layers or different expectations. So we wouldn't ask a high school student to create a marketing campaign, but we might ask a graduate student in that internship opportunity to draft that, get eyes on it, and then maybe work with interns and city staff to carry out that plan. And so this is very common in other entities, whether it be municipalities, businesses, higher ed, public ed, public sector. Public sector uses AmeriCorps, for example, to do a lot of this work. And so it would be similar to just revamping and creating that system for us, so that we can have more manpower to close communication gaps, information gaps for us. And then local, regional committees support interns. These sometimes we're not able. This again goes connected to definitely the policy stuff, but between this one and the research one, sometimes we're not able to be at all those municipal meetings. When Austin's making decisions about precinct 1 and or counties making decisions about the Eastern Corridor, and we're not always able to be there to hear the information or to do that research. These folks can definitely be in attendance there, build those relationships, and bring that information to council or city staff in those areas. So definitely not department stuff, but interns that can actually close information gaps and help build relationships between our key partners. That's pretty much it. This, if you scroll back up, it kind of talks about the structure and the hours, following what the students following, and even any adults that are going through the program is be more so following a semester type of calendar, fall, spring, summer, so that there's a clear start and end in those structures. And then you can kind of see those success measures where we're looking at specific tasks and projects being done, and then feedback surveys that we're asking them, and then that we're completing on them as well. Questions?
How did you come up with the intern number between 4 and 14?
Start with a small number of 4 to 14 graduate increase based on progress and such. So the graduate increase in my mind, or the 4 to 14, is based off of those areas. And so it starts with 1 per area, and then, kind of goes up to maybe if there was, maybe 2 per council member. So there's 7 of us, so that's 2 per council member. So that's kind of that 14. So that's why it's up to that. So again, like some of us may not be ready to take on that, may not have the time, and maybe that may feel comfortable with more training or support and knowing how to manage an intern. And so readiness may be at different levels. So that's why it's kind of, 4 to 14. It doesn't have to be, it could be 1, it could be 2. And so, but I figured it half of us might be ready for 1. So that's why the 4. So it's nothing specific out there. It's a guesstimate. But really the number would be based off of readiness, based off after we determine kind of that phase in stuff. And then graduate increase based on program success. That's more so in talking about later on adding the department's piece. If the department piece is going to be actually part of this proposal. Because this could be standalone to just council, and department can do their own thing through human resources and be completely separate. So I left that there as a connector, but it doesn't have to be at all, because they, yeah. Other questions?
I'm sorry if you discussed it while I was gone, but who's overseeing the project? Is that like
Who's
a
overseeing?
staff, like if we're having, since it's non-departments, like who will be, I guess, the main
Well,
contact?
So in the interim, my assumption would be between myself and city manager and city secretary to establish those pieces. So long term, we'd have to look at and see if maybe it'd be under the new hire, the community engagement person. But that would be direction, because I think there's something in that job description that's related to that. So until that position is hired, my assumption would be that the three of us will work out the kinks and fix the whatever needs to be done, of course with legal's eyes. Good question. Other questions? So I know some of y'all, I know some of y'all, I know you've had it for a while to look at it, but definitely as you continue, because tonight is about giving direction if we want to move forward, give us direction to move forward and finalize to bring forward to vote on, because it is a budget implication. And so the budget would be coming from our set aside that we get every year out of that amount. And so it's within the scope of our annual costs. But it wouldn't be utilized. Actually, it wouldn't be any cost in this budget cycle. It'd be a request to utilize funds in the next budget cycle out of our annual set aside.
Okay, that was my question. How soon were we looking into starting this?
Yeah. Well, actually, let me correct that, because depending on the direction and the payout. So in a lot of times internships, because that's unpaid internships and there's paid internships. So a lot of times they're paid, if we're using college students, they're usually paid at the end of the semester. Some are paid prorated across the month. So if that structure is at the end of the semester, then it's next big business cycle. If it's prorated across the month, then it's actually a portion would start out of this budget, and then the rest would be out of the next budget, because August and September would be this month. So a lot of that would also just depend on everyone's readiness, the final product, and who's ready to take on that work and do that, and then the systems that we put in place, and then go from there. Other questions? So again, this is just a draft. If we need to build in any extra things or clarify any things, then again, please send that that communication to us, and then we'll go from there. So, do we need to vote on that for direction, or do we just need to confirm direction, that make sure that everybody's good to move forward? Huh? Okay. So are we good with direction? We'll give them direction. All right. Y'all got direction. All right. So, City Council will now convene into executive session pursuant to the provision of Chapter 551 Texas Government Code. Definitely.
Not
think it's yours.